Teachers. What's the worst thing a kid brought for show and tell? Only been teaching 1 year but so far. Mom's only set of car keys. I brought 2 knives. My dad is from a region in France where they make famous knives Laguiole, and I owned 2 of them, one made of horn and one was bright orange. It didn't cross my mind it could be a problem. But they called my parents, who weren't mad at me. The teacher across the hall from me had a student who brought what he thought was a lucky rabbit foot to show to the class and excitedly announced he had enough for everyone in the class. The rabbit foot was a tampon. This is peeping hilarious. I like to think he saw the whole box of tampons and was like, wow, I'm gonna be so lucky. He was wearing one tied to his belt loop. I forgot about that part. My brother found a scorpion at our house and captured it to bring for show and tell. The scorpion got out somehow and the teacher had everyone on high alert to look for it and capture it. Several children returned to the teacher having found the scorpion. That was the day we found out our school was infested with scorpions undefined. I'm thinking this had to be Arizona. Someone brought their pet bird dead in a box that was going to be buried when they got home later that day. You sold my dead bird to the blind kid. Harry. I took care of it. Pretty bird. Pretty bird. My best friend in grade school brought a huge hunting knife one day. He missed a week of school and my parents didn't let me hang out with him anymore after that. He ended up becoming an ump in MLB and always gave out tickets to his buddies. Thanks Mom and Dad. I like free tickets too. Not a teacher but one of the kids in my class brought a remote control helicopter to class and flew it around. It was super cool until he accidentally got the blades wrapped around a girl's hair. I think the nurse spent an hour getting it out. 1993. Grade 3 primary school in Australia. My show and tell was rotten egg gas. I had a classmate hold a test tube that contained sulfur power while I added hydrochloric acid. No protective gear used. None of the adults saw any issue with this. When I was in 5th grade and going to school in AZ, this girl in our class brought in a glass jar with a tarantula and a black widow. No clue how she caught both in one day. Or why. Within an hour the tarantula was dead and upside down in the jar. Same day there was a fire drill and yep. Someone knocked it off her desk and the jar broke, releasing the black widow. We never found it but the teacher made sure to stomp the dead tarantula just in case. Same thing happened with our glass fire ant farm in 2nd grade. Now that I think about it, I don't know why people kept bringing this speep into school. Or why our teachers let them. In my school some kid brought in his collection of laundry rocks, which were crumpled up pieces of paper that he put in his pockets, and when his mom did the laundry they would turn hard like rocks. He said he did it by accident once. Liked it? And started deliberately putting crumpled paper in his pockets to make more. I imagine a lot of kids in your class made their own laundry rocks after that, LOL. Yeah. I can see this being really appealing to kids after being introduced like this. In the 3rd grade, a girl brought her mom's kidney stones in a pill bottle. WTF, my friend Travis did this in 2nd grade. WTF, I did this and my brother's name is Travis. WTF, I get kidney stones and my husband's name is Travis. WTF, I got a kidney from a guy named Travis Stone. WTF, kidney guy. Travis, I'm stoned. Not a teacher but my sister brought her pet cow. We lived on a dairy farm once for show and tell when we were younger. Wasn't show and tell but once during morning break while I was a student teacher. 2 6-year-olds came to find the class teacher in the staff room. They had something to show her. She came back with pictures. These boys had found half a dead and decomposed hedgehog and decided to pick it up and put it on her desk. Needless to say, hands were thoroughly washed and drenched in sanitizer. Not a teacher, but there was a girl in my brother's year whose dad owned a junk/salvage place. Girl brings in an old thermometer. Okay, cool. Whatever. She then goes, and then this is the most fun part, and proceeds to smash the thermometer on the desk and play with the mercury. I don't know how that got resolved, but I do know that by the time I got to first grade, we no longer had show and tell. I'm not a teacher, but did bring a black widow spider once. I caught it in my backyard. My teacher kindly explained that it was not okay to bring venomous spiders to school. Confiscated and released it. I brought a bat that I'd caught inside a glass mason jar. My teacher made me release it, and the little guy made a life for himself in the breezeway between the cafeteria and the main building. That's awesome. Went to school in a tiny town within eastern Colorado. Kid in my class drove his dad's combine to school for show and tell. Was in the 4th grade. Still find it crazy that nobody really cared that there was this big ass piece of farm equipment sitting on the front lawn all day. Was he held back? Or is 10 old enough to drive in Colorado? In many rural areas big enough to reach the piddles, big enough to operate farm equipment. I was 8. Why? Oh, when I started hauling hay wagons back and forth from farm to field. Not a teacher. But when I was in 3rd grade, this dumb kid in my class decided to bring a live bat to class. The only problem, he put the bat in a plastic bag in his book bag, and the bat died because it couldn't breathe. Him removing it from the plastic bag dead, I still remember almost 26 years later. Oddly in my head. This is the most 90s speep I've seen on here. When I was in 6th grade, I took a belly dancing bralette thing in that my brother sent me from his deployment. We were studying the Middle East and I had something from there. I thought it was cool. I remember my teacher gulping, eyes bulging, asking, "Just that? That's all they wear?" And me saying, "Yeah, I guess so." Anyways, it turns out he sent me his girlfriend's present, and his girlfriend got my Camel book. But I was very, very popular with the 6th grade boys for a little while. Asked my students to bring an object they loved. One kid brought his grandmother. That's just adorable. Plot twist. She was in a vase. I must be messed up because that was my initial guess. I taught 5th grade in a school with really rich kids and really low-income kids bust in. One of the low-income kids brought a coconut for her show and tell about Trinidad, where her dad was from. She cracked it open, it was completely rotten inside and smelled awful. I was so worried about the kid being embarrassed. But then one of the rich kids, who was also of a pretty low intellect, looked at it with wide eyes and said it's like the earth. The core, the mantle and the crust. Which is something I think he had never really understood before. So it actually turned out pretty well. A lamb's tail. Apparently they went to a farm which let visitors keep them as souvenirs who knew that removing tails was a thing. Turns out it was a mistake to postpone show and tell for a couple of days while hidden in a locker. The tail marinated in the July heat. I brought a rattlesnake to school in a mason jar that my father killed directly by our front door. I was 6. Took to show my class. After the teacher let me show everyone and we discussed it, she stuck it in closet so we would all calm back down. Completely forgotten about, and we had a 3-day weekend. We had to have class in the gymnasium for 3 days. When I was a newborn baby, my sister convinced my mom to bring me to her 3rd grade show and tell, and I barfed all over her. My brother made my mom bring me for show and tell after I was born. He then proceeded to tell the entire class that he helped her dig me up from a cabbage patch. The kids all believed him, and the teacher was supposedly trying her hardest to not break out in hysterical laughter. Yes. I'm a 53-year-old Cabbage Patch Kid. That's actually the cutest thing ever. When I was in prep, so about 5, I bought in a skeleton my dad used for study. It was a real skeleton. Back in the 60s/70s when he was studying medicine. You could just buy a skeleton. He used it to learn the bones of the human body. Thing is, my dad must have bought it in because it was in a big box and I couldn't have done it myself. A dead frog that had been converted into a coin purse.